A tropical wave out in the Atlantic has a high chance to become our next named storm, which is Gabrielle. In fact, most model runs like the idea of this becoming our next hurricane of the season. So here to get very detailed on this system and many other things also. The first thing we'll discuss is current conditions with this wave out in the Atlantic. It's a very large tropical wave, I would add. And then we'll go over all model runs. We'll discuss steering currents also and why we are leaning one way for this system to go instead of the other way, I would say. So we'll speak on everything, get very detailed, and then we'll round the video off with today's forecast. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and of course, if anyone has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. Let's make sure this is going to work for us. And it is. So we're good to go. Let's circle a couple things as we take a broad look at the entire Atlantic. First off, I will say the Gulf is quiet. The Caribbean quiet. The Southwest Atlantic is quiet. I do want to circle this area, which doesn't look like much on your screen, I know, but this is sort of a low pressure trying to develop or in the process of developing. It's non-tropical off the coast of the Carolinas, really North Carolina, around the Tidewater, sort of Delmarva area. And this is going to continue to try to develop, spin around, throw some shower activity, much needed rain, I would add, into areas of, the eastern Carolinas and Virginia up into Maryland, things like that. Not expecting anything tropical to develop out of this, but you never know. And we'll continue to watch it over the next, I would say, 48 hours or so. But really all eyes are on this area of convection out here. This is our large tropical wave we are watching. It's pretty much right in the middle of what we call the tropical Atlantic or MDR, main development region. So this is where we have a high chance at tropical development, where we can get our next named storm, which is Gabrielle. So let's go on and get a little bit closer to it. Not a whole lot more I can add here. The colors you see on your screen with this blob here in the Atlantic, this is a lot of shower and storm activity, convection, another word for it, fancy weather term there. And this is popping off some colder cloud tops, which is being reflected on your screen in these colors, the orange, reds, blacks, whites, things like that. This tells us that we have taller updrafts, which means we have stronger shower and storm activity. And because they're taller, they get higher up in the atmosphere. The higher up you get, the colder it gets, and this is reflected by the colors you see on your screen. So it's a pretty healthy tropical wave with disorganized shower and storm activity. Very large, though. And you would think it's large, it's scary, things like that. But, actually, when these things are so large like this, it makes it harder for this to consolidate, kind of get a tight, I would say, low-level feature or low-level circulation. But we'll continue to watch it. All signs point to this developing. So we're obviously watching it. Definitely. But we look at the latest from the National Hurricane Center. This is from the 1:32 a.m. Update from overnight. This is now up to an 80% chance to develop into our next named storm or just a tropical depression. And you can read the discussion there. It says, a depression could develop sometime in the middle to later portion of this week. So definitely has a good shot, a high chance to develop. And I know the wave 7 to 10 days ago had a 90% chance to develop at some point. And we all kind of got the rug pulled out from under us that was tracking this wave, and definitely me included in that. I thought it was going to become a hurricane. But the difference between that wave and this wave is this wave actually looks like a real true tropical wave. The one 7-10 days ago, it honestly never looked like a healthy tropical wave. It was trying, but this one has a huge moisture bubble. It's very large. It's ready to rock and roll. So this one's definitely different in real time for sure. So 80% chance for this to develop. There's nothing else on the screen out here that we're watching. But let's go over model guidance. So this is the latest Euro, and as always, we'll start this out 48 hours from where we're at right now. So this is Wednesday morning, September the 17th. So the timestamp is up here if you want to follow along, if I do forget to mention the day of the week or something like that. So it's saying that this tropical wave is right about right here, which is still pretty much right in the middle of the tropical Atlantic. And we'll continue to move forward. And yes, this does get north, so I know a lot of people in the comments are going to just say, well, this looks like another fish storm. This is going to just stay out to sea, stay out in the ocean. And, I will say it right out the dot. It does look like most things indicate to that. It looks like this is going to get north, and the steering currents, look for this to gain latitude. But of course, you never quite know. That's why we track everything. So this is getting into Thursday morning. This is gaining some latitude. Not getting much stronger. Still 1,005 millibar low, which tells us this is still probably maybe a wave, a depression, maybe a very weak tropical storm, which would take the name Gabrielle. But then as we start to get into around Saturday morning, this is when I want to watch for this to try to begin to slowly develop, which is, a good 5 days out ahead of us. And at this point, we are north of the Leeward Islands, so this really isn't impacting anybody there. And we get a little bit closer to home here, and we start to get into Saturday and to Sunday. And this is when it looks like this begins to turn the corner as far as strength. It gets stronger. But it also is beginning to quite literally turn the corner as it's beginning to turn further and further north. And this is a 992 millibar low at this point. So, one would say that this is a tropical storm based off the millibar being modeled. And then the Euro has this becoming a hurricane a week from today, as it's well south of Bermuda, well north of, say, Puerto Rico and the Leeward Islands. But it is a very strong hurricane, and it's pretty far away from everybody. Now, we got to watch our friends out here in Bermuda. As we keep this going, it gets very close, but it begins to hook back. Well, a couple people corrected me several weeks back saying, well, why say it's going to recurve back out to sea when it's already out to sea? And every time I think about that when I'm about to say it, it trips my words up. But it remains out to sea, and really it kind of just turns and goes back to the northeast or even east with what this is showing. But it is a powerful hurricane, sort of just south at this point. This is like next Tuesday, right? I mean, the 23rd. It's a powerful hurricane south or southeast of Bermuda at this point. But this is just remaining out to sea, and it turns very dramatically and really doesn't bother anybody. It doesn't really even get close enough to Bermuda between the day 7 to 10 time frame to really bring any significant impacts to you guys if this is the way it plays out. Of course, we can't look at model runs as if that's exactly what's going to happen, right? So let's look at the latest GFS. Same thing. We'll start off Wednesday morning, 48 hours from now, and very large wave, having a hard time developing. We get all the way to Saturday morning, and this really still hasn't developed yet. And then same thing that the Euro is showing, the GFS is also showing. This begins to turn the corner as far as strength sometime Saturday and the Sunday of this coming weekend. So it's a 996 millibar low. And we'll have to fast forward this here. And here it is, 996. Then it's a hurricane, 985. I would say that's probably a category 1 or 2 hurricane. Monday morning, here it is, Bermuda, right here, southeast coastline. The Caribbean islands down here. And this turns even faster than the Euro and doesn't bother a soul. Just strengthens rapidly and then kind of hooks and hightails it back out and gets further back out in the North Atlantic. Doesn't bother anybody. Okay, so, I mean, we do have what looks to be a developing tropical system at some point over the next 7 days. But yeah, I would agree. This doesn't look to bother anybody, but you never know what could change with the upper wind pattern as far as steering currents. Now, the Euro AI model, here's our wave right here. There does show another wave behind it, but the Euro AI model doesn't really ever like this developing at all. Now, I would say the Euro AI model showed the same thing with the wave, a week or so ago. So, is the Euro AI model going to be right again? That's why I'm showing it, because, we got to tip our cap to it because it nailed the last wave when it showed it never developing. So, we'll continue to watch. It does try to develop it once it begins to kind of make that turn back to the east and remain way out in the North Atlantic. But it's something to watch for sure. And now the latest from the Euro ensemble. Remember, this makes up 51 members. There's a couple things you'll see on here. One being a little bit of a signal for a wave behind the main signal, which is right here. So we'll start this off. This is this coming Thursday. We get into Friday. This is our main wave of interest. And like I said, there is a few L's down here showing another wave behind it. But the reason why we always continue to track, even though, everything indicates that this is going to remain out to sea. It's going to sort of make that curve north and then back to the northeast and eventually to the east. I mean, everything's pointing to that, right? But the reason we continue to track it is you continue to have some stragglers that are to the south and wants to sort of remain going east to west. Okay, you got several members down here. Most of them are up here, kind of making that turn north, right? And eventually northeast, but you still got some stragglers down here wanting to do their own thing. So that's why we got to continue to watch it. And, it's hard to see what's going on here because is this from the wave behind it? I don't think these are, but these definitely are the wave behind it. But most members, yes, do begin to turn north and then eventually northeast, but we still got to watch it. There's just a few to several members that are just getting really close to land, whether it's the Turks, Caicos Islands, the Bahamas, etc. So what about the GFS ensemble? Same thing. This is the signal for our wave of interest right now. A little bit of a signal behind it. This only makes up 21 members, so pretty loud signal. And I will say the GFS and its ensembles do like the idea a little bit of a wave trying to develop or some sort of tropical system developing maybe off the coast of the southeast. So we will watch this. There's a lot of L's firing off here. But once again, the GFS ensemble shows kind of a similar scenario as the Euro ensemble. Many members are beginning to make that turn, but there's some members into here that are just kind of hanging south. And then there's some members that are hanging way south right into here. So there is definitely a fork in the road here where some members are just doing their own thing, and it is definitely not kind of a solid just look on ensemble, guys. So this is just going to curve and stay out to sea. In my opinion, it's not based off ensemble. So I am interested to see if we start to get some wacky operational run models like the Euro operational run or the GFS run that start to show some runs a little bit closer. Or we can begin to trend more and more and more out to sea with this. So it's something to watch. Now, one of the biggest reasons we're seeing this to look to stay out to sea so much is, once again, we'll discuss steering currents here. Here's our tropical system itself as we're getting into Wednesday morning. The blue is lower pressure. The yellows, the orange, the reds you see on your screen. This is higher pressure. Steering goes differently around all of these features in the upper levels. But, our tropical system itself, or wave at this point, is low pressure. So, the steering currents around this high pressure is kind of going like this and like that. So this is why this is being steered right now, or so east to west. So we continue to move forward in time. Try to keep your eyes on this little area right here, and we start to get into Thursday. We get into Friday. This is almost looks even weaker Friday than it is, say, this Wednesday. So our system is right here, and it's so weak at this point that you barely can see it, but our low pressure is right here. Now steering is kind of being flowed like this, right? So there's enough ridging right here to kind of keep this further south, but you want to watch kind of the trough that digs down here. This might weaken the ridge. I mean, this is already kind of a weak ridge of high pressure in place right here anyways. It's not very strong, and there just has been lack of a strong Atlantic ridge so far this hurricane season. And it's probably because we've had consistent cold fronts over the eastern U.S. since like last month, which is why we've had such kind of an early start to fall across the east. But our system is right here. It's kind of almost embedded in ridging. So it might slow down because of that right here. But as we're moving forward, you're thinking, we got some of these yellows and oranges right here. So this is probably going to get maybe kind of steered more so this way. Well, watch what kind of happens right into here or around that area. As we're moving forward here, you can see how the yellows begins to break up and we start to get more whites. That is a weakness in the ridge showing up right here. So our system at this point, which could be a powerful hurricane, sort of begins to in a way, sniff out that weakness and begins to turn north even faster and gain latitude. And it probably is being helped as this kind of dip in the jet right here, this trough is sort of coming down and weakening that ridge even more, and then actually snatches up our tropical system and kind of literally throws it out into the North Atlantic. So, I mean, in general, there is ridging on top of this system sort of steering it, but it's very weak. We just have not had a dominant Atlantic high this hurricane season, which is good news. But even if we did, we haven't had a whole lot of tropical systems to track in general to be a threat. So, we're watching this, we're tracking this, but we're not super concerned about it, at least right now. Now, a little bit closer to home, is there still a bit of a signal, say, off the GFS for that Central American gyron we were talking about late last week? Not really. I mean, it actually is backed off, which we kind of thought. Remember, I was telling you last week that, I thought the GFS was just being a little bit too aggressive with this. And sure enough, it's completely backed off from any kind of tropical system developing the Western Caribbean, Southern Gulf. And it really doesn't show anything. It shows a lot of energy around. Of course, we get to about day 10 and you start to see something trying to materialize here. And honestly, the later portion of the month, if there's going to be anything that gets going in the Gulf or Western Caribbean, I would look for that time frame. We got more rising air moving into the Atlantic. So I could see this a little bit more. It kind of develops a quick, weak tropical system past day 10, but it's just so far out. We got to just kind of watch it at this point. It's nothing concerning. So that's an update on the tropics. As far as today's weather, we do have the moisture we just talked about kind of getting thrown into North Carolina, starting to get into the tide water. This is from our coastal low that I talked about in the beginning of the video developing. A little bit of shower and storm activity across Tennessee, northern Alabama, Mississippi. And we need some rain across areas of the southeast. It has got very dry. A little bit of rain across North Dakota, a little bit of rain across the western states, but I mean, nothing really active at all. Watches, warnings, and advisories, just quiet. I mean, there's nothing to mention. As far as severe weather, we had a bit of a tornado outbreak across the Dakotas yesterday. Some wild-looking tornadoes that storm chasers got. Today, I don't see much of that, but we do need to watch out for a risk of some severe weather across areas of Wyoming getting into the Dakotas. And then we'll watch for some severe storms, level 1 out of 5 risk up here in northern Minnesota. And then we'll watch eastern sections of North Carolina into southeast Virginia. There's a marginal risk for severe weather in place here. We do actually have a 2% risk of a tornado in these areas from a little bit of just energy off this coastal low. As far as excessive rainfall, just a 5% risk in eastern North Carolina, southeast Virginia. Nowhere else really has a risk of flash flooding. And speaking of that coastal low, here's that low pressure. You can see it off the HRRR model spinning around off the coast of the Carolinas. This will continue just to bring some showers, some thunderstorms into the eastern sections of North Carolina, southeast Virginia, southern Maryland, even all the way up into Delaware, especially later tonight. It's an interesting little feature for sure. This will keep temperatures even cooler in this area today. Kind of socked in cloud cover, if you will. Florida, you're not going to get as much rain today, maybe this week in general. So enjoy that. But just a closer look at all this rainfall that could happen, and I wouldn't say all this rainfall, but some steady light to moderate rain that could whip its way into the eastern sections of Virginia and North Carolina. This is getting to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We'll take it, much needed rain. I wouldn't expect really any flooding, but this is like 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Definitely some heavier showers, maybe even some thunderstorms making their way through these areas for sure. So we'll watch these areas, but not a big deal. Now the Northeast today, the Northeast today, we start to get into this afternoon. Some showers could make its way really later this evening up into the Tidewater to the Delmarva area. And by the time we get later tonight, some showers could make their way all the way up into southern New Jersey. But we're waking up tomorrow to a washout across the D.C. corridor, the Tidewater, Maryland, Delmarva. So we expect a rainy start for tomorrow. The south central U.S., just pop up showers and storms. It's more so kind of a summer type pattern. But had to pause the video because my dog was jumping at my side door here. But anyways, moving forward, what stinks about this area of the country is you guys have just been locked in a summer pattern. I mean, it's gotten very hot. It's stayed hot in these areas over the last week or so, and it'll just be kind of hot, soupy in this area. So this is going to fire up more of a summer-like pattern. So pop-up showers and storms across Arkansas, Missouri, northern Mississippi, Texas, Oklahoma, things like that. But, no, I would say, focused in area of storms. The north central U.S., a little bit of a spinning low up here. This will bring some thunderstorms across the Dakotas, and eventually we have to watch northern Minnesota for some severe weather, but the HRRR model doesn't show much at all. Some showers and storms could make their way into the western areas of the Dakotas. But in general, just not a lot of weather out here today. Western U.S., this is what we're looking at. Just some energy across Montana, northern Wyoming, maybe some snow in the higher elevations, but not a whole lot of anything. Temperatures, like I said, continues to be hot up the Mississippi Valley, west and east of it. It's a nice day in the Northeast. You're pretty much locked into fall now. The Southeast, it's warm, 80s, stuff like that, but lower humidity. And then this is the Western U.S., hot in the middle of the country. The West, not too bad. Cool in areas, hot in the Southwest. But hey, that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Appreciate y'all understanding with a little bit of a break over the weekend. That's something I normally don't do, but maybe it's something I'll do more because it was incredibly nice. It was just nice. I'll be honest, I love you guys to death, and you know that y'all are family. But it was nice just waking up, not having any pressure to immediately jump on the computer and make a video. Just unplugging a little bit. It was a great weekend. I actually had lost my wedding band. It really stunk. My hands have kind of shrunk because I've lost some weight doing a cut with my diet over the last few months. And I thought I lost my wedding band, and I was actually already just in my head went on and just understood that I was going to have to buy another one. And I found it. So it was awesome. It was a great start to the weekend. Great soccer games. My Gamecocks got just obliterated by Vanderbilt. But congrats any Vanderbilt fans. So that was kind of a stinker there, but it's just football. But it was a nice break, nice unplugging, and ate some good food. Took a little bit of a diet break. I'm very strict on my diet. I don't eat bad, but definitely enjoyed me some pizza and some ice cream, and just ate out a little bit. So it was like a mini vacation, if you will. So appreciate y'all understanding, but we're back to the grind. If this video was a little bit messy, it's just because, I took a few days off and a little bit sleepy. So just got to get the ball rolling again. We'll get back in rhythm. But I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a wonderful start to your week, and we'll be back at it tomorrow morning. God bless.